seen Oldham County Colonels. You've seen Christian County Colonels. Now you get to see a real life Colonel. Sir, if you would, tell us who you are.
Colonel retired Blaine Hedges, United States Army. Just a good old boy from Louisville, Kentucky, out here in Southern California trying to make a difference right now.
And of course, you're the 1987 112-pound state champion representing Waggener High School. You're our first Waggener state champion, and we'll talk about Waggener's history just in a little bit, but the wrestling, the Kentucky wrestling community, if you will, kind of got a little energized. We're filming this on the 23rd, September 23rd, 2024. I put out about a weekly or so state wrestling tournament trivia, and I put out the question, who's the highest ranking member of the United States military that also won a state championship? And a lot of people come up with some guy, maybe you guys have heard of him, some dude, I'm not sure whatever happened to him, named Dominic Black, retired as a lieutenant colonel, but you've got him just, little bit with that colonel rank. So man, glad that you're able to join us and kind of give us the 2 cents on how you got started into wrestling, man. What got you into it?
Okay, this one's a little embarrassing, but I didn't start wrestling until my sophomore year in high school. Most people don't know that, but I was a break dancer, and I moved out with my dad after my 8th grade summer, and I ended up staying. And so I ended up moving back to Louisville, Kentucky at the very end of, in the middle of my 9th grade. And I got into break dancing, and I was break dancing in the cafeteria. Of course, I learned how to break dance in California. And a couple guys that I ended up getting very close to were on the wrestling team. And Jack Jacobs was the wrestling coach at the time. And I was flipping around on the ground doing something, and I got up, and Jack Jacobs came, and he squeezed my arm like this, and he kept walking. He didn't say a word. I didn't know who he was. And one of my buddies was sitting on the wall, and he just leaned up and goes, "That means he wants you to wrestle." And he was one of the guys from the wrestling team. Well, it was already so late in the season at that time, January, that they're like, "You need to come out for the wrestling team." I said, "I'm in." And so they tried to show me some stuff over the summer. And sure enough, that next fall I went out, and I'm going to tell you that the coaches, Phil Coombs and Jeff Price at the time, and the sport of wrestling saved my life. I grew up in a broken home. Mom married and divorced, 3 or 4 times, and grew up in some bad neighborhoods, and just wasn't on a good path. And the sport of wrestling changed everything about my life. So my hat's off to it. And my hat's off to all the wrestlers out there. And I tell you, fast forward to 55 years old, and I was actually retired earlier this year. I own a couple companies, but basically retired, having fun, fat, out of shape, sitting in my pool, and I get this phone call to come and check out this place in Carlsbad, California, called the Army Navy Academy. It's a 7th through 12th grade military boarding school. Anyway, one of my old mentors is the president. She calls me out here, and absolutely gorgeous, 18 acres on the ocean in Carlsbad, California. And, you think, hey, I'm coming out because it's Southern California. I'm going to move out here because of, the beautiful campus. No, man, I just can't think of any greater honor than laying the foundation of character and leadership for these young men, and which is really going to pay dividends for generations to come. And then to cap it all off, they just made me the head wrestling coach.
I was hoping, we would get to that, or you would lead into it, but I'm glad you brought that up, man. The head wrestling coach of the Army Navy Academy, correct? Am I saying that right?
That is correct. The Army Navy Academy here in Carlsbad, California.
Well, maybe we can get you to come to Kentucky for some wrestling meets there in the season, man. We'd love to, maybe come back to some of the bigger events, the Trinity tournament, the Royal Rumble, something, man. It'd be cool to have you.
Well, I tell you, it would be an honor to do that. It's going to take me a couple years. Most of these guys are brand new wrestlers, and so I'm really going to try to rebuild this program. But just what a great honor,
man. And we were talking a little bit off camera about our buddy, Dominic being selected as the head wrestling coach for a high school there in just right outside of Cincinnati. I believe it's called Anderson. So Dominic, if I got that wrong, please, I know you'll message me on it when you watch this, but I've said in so many videos, I can't think of a better person to be leading a high school team than somebody like Dominic, but I can't think of anybody better in the whole world to lead the Army Navy Academy head wrestling program than you. I mean, state champion wrestler, United States Army retired colonel. I don't think it could get much better than that.
Well, I tell you, we got preseason going on right now. It's been an interesting ride, but Dominique Black, you had to say that name, didn't you?
Yeah,
I got scar tissue. It runs deep. Here I am. I pin all the way through the state championship or through the state tournament my senior year, and he walks away with the MLW trophy. I'm still broken.
Yeah, that was and you pinned. All Dominic done was cut, take down, and cut, take down, cut, take down, cut.
I guess that's a formula right there. Hey, what's funny is actually so Dominique went on to wrestle and did some stuff for the Army, but our paths crossed, I believe, at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and just a great guy, man. Appreciate everything he did for not just the sport of wrestling, but for our country.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When we put Dominic's video out, and he was going into his not just his wrestling career, but his military. I could be mistaken. I don't want to say it wrong, but I believe he retired as the commanding officer of is it the All Army Athletic Program? Does that sound?
Yeah, it does. So I don't know if that's the actual name of the organization, but anybody that does any sort of elite, whether it's elite sporting events, whether it's basketball, wrestling, you name it, it's called the All Army team that you have to actually make the team, and so that would logically make sense for sure.
And we've had a couple gentlemen on the channel. You may remember Dave Ritchie from Caldwell County. He represented. He's on the channel, 3-timer from Caldwell. He wrestled with Randy Couture on the All Army team back in like 87, 88, 89. There was a couple other, Grady Peterson from Christian County, a couple other people that have been on it. But man, you talk about, and I'm glad you said that about being or only starting as a sophomore, because one thing I pride myself on is like my research, my brackets, and I was looking for the 84 through the 84, and I was like, well, maybe he didn't make it, maybe but that would make sense if you only started in 85. But 1985, of course, a sophomore, 98 pounds back before we had the weight class of 106, and before that 103. The lightest weight class was 98 pounds. So you make it to the state tournament. We always say in wrestling, you either win or you learn. 1985 was a learning year.
Yes, it was.
And it happens to the best of us. You know what I mean?
My memory of wrestling, oddly enough, I can't remember what I did yesterday, but I can remember a lot of what happened in my wrestling days. And a guy named Dan Sellers, if I recall correctly, I would shoot a doubling on him, and he would just hip bump me, and ended up taking me down. Ended up losing to him, and I don't remember if he put me out or I don't know. I don't remember who I lost to. But anyway, yeah. So I guess I would have wrestled for 7th and 8th if they had it at the time, but they didn't, and so I didn't.
Yeah, I believe back then. I believe we only placed out to 4th, if I'm not mistaken, on the podium there. But man, you make up for it. 1986, 105 pounds, a junior. We have some Louisville on Louisville crime. You're wrestling Brett King from Fern Creek.
Horrible.
And well, I was going to say, you guys are going to see some clips. We have the 1986 video as well from the state finals. Brett gets you, man, with a 4-2 decision. So you went from your first year wrestling, making it, to your second year, you're in the finals. You know, you got to be happy with your progress, I would have to imagine, right?
Hey, I tell you, look, man, I fell in love with the sport of wrestling. That's all I wanted to do was wrestle, wrestle, wrestle. And I said horrible when you said Brett King's name, because when you said, you know, two Louisville guys. So when I was at 98, Hillman Dunlap were both in my district, and they went on to be in the finals. And so I lost to him 3 times that year. And then you fast forward to my junior year, he took 5 of my gold medals. They're his gold medals. But so we met in 5 tournaments. And then of course the dual meet, he got me on all of them. So, yeah, so it seemed like every time I turn around, I bumped into that guy.
Was it just, does he just had your number? Was it like, did he had something you couldn't stop, or you remember? But
dude, I tell you what, man, he was just better than I was. I mean, that's the reality of it. But, one of the things that he did to me, that I ended up latching onto was crossbody riding, and I became a pretty good crossbody rider myself. And but yeah, man, I couldn't shake him. Man, he was like a little spider monkey. He was just all over me. Yep. And so I didn't like that, and so I said, if you can't beat him, join him. And I tried to become the best leg rider I could.
Hey, man, and that is which in the 80s, something that we have saw through I've got, as of this filming, I've been able to find, we've got 40 years of the state. There's been 61 state tournaments. I've got video for 40 of them. We're missing all the 70s. I've got 1 year from 1969, but it's so cool to see the progression of how Kentucky wrestling has changed from, you know, our beginning in the 60s, through the 80s, 90s, and what we got now. And like in the 80s, you rarely saw anybody throw legs in. And if you did, they 1 or 2 moves. So I could see somebody knowing how to ride legs, or even using a couple moves, being, you know, head and shoulders above people that didn't even know what was going on with the legs. You know what I mean?
Brett King was a master, and he used to whoop me with them. And so I learned how to do it and start whooping everybody else with them.
Now, if I could be, the Fern Creek coach, his name was Tim Dench, correct?
Tim Dench, yes, sir.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Actually, in 1990, he ended up transferring and becoming the Waggener High School wrestling coach.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool, man. I had no idea. $1987, though, man, 112 pounds was your year. Let's talk about that. You start off with now it could be a mistake, but the bracket has you winning 15-0. Do you remember that, or was it a fall?
No, it was a technical fall. So
okay.
So it was 15-0, and I believe the guy's name was Kresig. I don't know which Kresig it was. I know that one of the Kresigs was St. X's wrestling coach for a long time, recently retired.
Yep.
Great guy. And yeah, so that was, I couldn't pin that little booger. I had to get him on point. So.
Yep, I was going to say that was Greg Crazy, St. X, and he actually goes on in 1990, 130-pound state champion. I I think that it was Jim Crazy was the wrestling coach, I believe,
Okay.
because he retired a couple years ago. I believe that was his name, Coach Jim. Then you get to the back in 80, I think 86, 85. 87 was all 8-man brackets. They had districts, regions, semi-states, and then the state tournament, guys, in case you're wondering. So it's only an 8-man bracket. So in the semis, you're wrestling Lee Martin from Louisville Trinity. So far, man, you've had 2 matches, 2 Louisville guys. Were you kind of familiar with them, or was they, guys you'd never seen before, got to wrestle, or?
I don't think I ever wrestled Crazy before, but I had wrestled Lee Martin. I think I wrestled him in the county finals.
Oh, okay. That's
so
that's cool.
I had met him earlier in the year, but also when Christmas rolls around, a lot of times schools will get together and train together in Louisville because there's just not enough kids on the team, or at least we did back then. And so Trinity was one of them that would come over to the wrestling room at Waggener and actually wrestle with us. So.
And funny you should say that. We recently went down to Trinity and we done George Faree's 2 state championships. And of course, his dad, Tim, couldn't have, he was very hospitable. He got me down there, and I didn't realize how close Waggener and Trinity was. And of course, Tim told me, he was a Waggener alum, and we was there, and I was like, Waggener's right down the road here, like a mile, and I believe you guys are on the team together, and I believe Tim's the one that got us linked up. So Tim, man, thank you for getting myself and Colonel Hedges linked up here. So I guess you guys just could have walked across what was that, Shelbyville Road and wrestled instead of going all the way to the other side of wrestled Atherton.
Yes, we most definitely could have.
I got you. Now you get to the finals. You're wrestling John Bingham from Union County. The bracket has you coming into the finals with a record of 42-2. Does that sound correct?
I thought it into the state tournament because I ended up 45-2. Yeah. So
okay.
2 losses. I lost to a guy from Ohio, and then Fern Creek they just had my number, man. Troy got me in the dual meet, who ultimately went on to be a state champ and a good friend. And tell you, speaking of Tim Faree, so a guy named Steve Brown and myself take pride that we recruited most of the 89 guys. And so Tim and Tom, his twin brother, were both on that 89 roster. And George Faree, I will take credit for bringing him into the sport of wrestling. I'm the one that recruited him out of basketball. I was coaching for the Shamrock Wrestling Club at the time. And so that was one of my proteges. And if you watch him wrestle, he was an unbelievable crossbody rider. So another unbelievable leg rider in addition to my son.
Yeah, and in George's 2023 video, he uses a cross-face cradle to get the fall. So that's what I'm not saying it's a lost art, but youngsters nowadays, you'll see them and they try all these crazy moves they see, and they'll go to camps and learn all these, just moves that you like. That isn't only person you're going to pin with that is a fish. But like these crossbody, these rides, these cross-face cradles, anything coming across the body is still effective. You can see dudes in 1969 use it. It's still effective in 2024, in my best opinion. If the sport of wrestling exists in 3024, they'll still be effective because the human body, we're not really made to, I guess, in a defensive way, like to be crossed up and try to fight back. So if you know what you're doing, you can cross somebody up. You can pretty much have your way with them if you know what you're doing. But of course, we're not going to tell you how the match ends. I think you may have already alluded to it. We want to kind of leave a little bit of a tease. Now, had you wrestled John Bingham before?
No, I hadn't even really seen him all year. So I watched him at a couple matches when he was wrestling at the state tournament. And one of the things that he would, at least from the 2 matches I watched, just right off the whistle, he would come and try to do some heavy hands, some clubbing and some good hand fighting. And so I shot right off the whistle. Come on.
Yeah, hey, bring the fight to him. Bingham, he wins a 6-5 decision in the first round and an 18-4 decision in the semis, and he's a junior with a record of 29-2. So, and Union County guys, we know Union County, they've been the top dogs in the state for a pretty good while now. But Union County, they won the team title, and I believe it was 76, 80, and 82. So they had a tradition, but they weren't like they are nowadays. They're not, and I'm not saying they didn't have good wrestlers, but I mean, when you've won, I think it's 8 of the last 9 state championships and just been absolute hammers, have 2 of the best in the world with the Rainey brothers on your roster. As it is right now, it's a little bit different back in the 80s. And Louisville to Morgan Field isn't the shortest trip to make. So I could see you guys maybe not wrestling each other or seeing each other at least. But has it been a while since you've seen your match video?
Oh yeah, it's been a long time.
Awesome, man. Well, we've got the. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say about Union County. So I was coaching as my son was growing up. I ended up my last duty assignment was actually at Fort Knox, Kentucky, where I was a brigade commander, and so I arrived in 2014, and so I helped coach all the way through my son finishing up at Trinity High School. But I tell you what, man, Union County, what they've done has been very, very impressive over the last decade plus. And my hat's off to them, the coaches, the effort those guys put into it. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I follow the Rainey brothers, man. They're making me proud, being from the state of Kentucky. So.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We Jordan and Jaden just recently got back. I believe it was from Turkey, 17 under Greco and freestyle. Come back with 1 gold medal. I believe Jordan got injured there, and wish him all the best. Want to see him back out on the mats. But with this 87 video, I brought up Tim Dench earlier. He was the gentleman. I believe it was his. He owned like a video production company or something to that effect, and he's the one who. I'm not sure if he filmed it, but he's the one. His name is not at the end of it, like Tim Dench Productions. So it's kind of cool that he was. I guess he knew what to film and told his production staff, hey, let's film from this angle. Let's set up here because it's a really good. I hate to use for the 80s, for 87. It's a great production. We've got the match video, the face-off video, and we have the medal ceremony. So we're gonna pull it up here. Now you don't have to go into too much detail, but did you live somewhat close to Atherton Gym, or were you like far away from it in the city? Or
no, so Atherton's probably 15 minutes away from where I lived.
Okay, because the reason I asked that question is a lot of Louisville area and even Oldham County guys, Hardin County, they said that after they won their semifinals match, they would go home and like sleep, eat some food, take a nap, whatever, take a shower. Did you go back home after your semifinals, or did you stay around the gym?
You know what? I honestly can't remember. I know that a lot of times I would leave and come back, and so but I honestly just don't remember.
No, okay, that's I get it. There's a lot to be said for being able to sleep in your own bed at night, not having to stay in a hotel with the team.
Oh, for sure.
And just a short ride over, and you don't have a long bus ride going back home. You can go celebrate with whoever, teammates, classmates, whoever it may have been back then. But man, we're gonna get going. Let's do it. What was that? Your headgear on your head there? Now, do
Yeah.
you remember taking this photo? I'm sorry, do you remember taking this photo?
Uh, I I don't. I'm gonna go with I think so. But
Okay.
I don't.
Here we go. Right off the gate, you shoot like you said. You're in that white singlet with the red trim. You get a takedown, man. You're wearing a face protector, correct?
Yeah, I broke my nose against that kid from Ohio I was telling you about. No, I'm sorry. I broke my nose in that tournament. It was a Simon Kitten. It was in a pigtail match. But when I lost to that guy, I couldn't see him coming, man. It was weird.
Yeah. So that's something, man. You know, having to get used to is that mask. I can see that kind of cramping your style. All right, so you got him broke down here. I've had to turn the volume down almost to nothing, but it's still. Do you remember the crowd being just crazy loud
yeah.
there?
Oh yeah. Well, I couldn't. Of course, when you wrestle, you don't hear anything. But crowd was going nuts. That's what I was when you first started. I was like, "Holy moly, that's loud."
Yeah, and I've turned it almost down to nothing. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but our buddy Jeff Everman from Simon Kenton got it started off with a fall, and then Chuck Reimer, both from Simon Kenton, they both had falls. So you're coming in, man. The crowd is, on fire, hot. All right, so we got a little bit of a stalemate there.
Yeah, I thought I rode legs a lot, and they were quick on calling the stalemate on the leg riding too. But I haven't. I think I slid one in a second ago, but I haven't really seen it. But we missed a lot of the breaks, so yeah, there's one.
And you're trying for like a banana split there, trying to pull him back over.
Yeah, so that was probably my favorite move. I pinned over half the guys that I had like 43 pins that year. 43 pins, and over half of them were in a banana split. So that's the move I was working at the time for sure.
Yeah, little quick there on the stalemate. Sometimes. All right, so we're pretty close to wrapping up the first period. People, that wrestled, sometimes 2 minutes can feel like it takes 5 years, and sometimes 2 minutes goes by in 20 seconds. Was it being in the finals for the second time? Was it like you remember it being like a shorter? Like, man alive, where did 2 minutes go? Or was like, man alive, that took forever?
No, I was actually surprised that. So I took him down right off the whistle. I was kind of surprised that I couldn't do anything with my legs.
So this is the start of the second period here. You roll through, get like a Peterson.
Yeah. So one of our coaches, it was a sit out turn into a Peterson, but you lock the leg on the back side, and that leg helps you elevate.
Mm-hmm.
And then I switched it off right here to what we call a crab cradle.
There it is. Looking, nothing yet. There it is. Pin. Look at that fan section, man.
We had mat made back in the day, man. I tell you, wrestling was a big deal at Waggener High School when I wrestled.
Yeah. Do you remember going over and taking this photo at the end? Because this was the first year they done it after the match.
Yeah, I mean, now that I'm seeing it, I do. It's interesting. I don't know if I turn around at some point. There it is right there. My mom threw a shirt at me, and it said it said Hedges State Champion on the back of it. So I don't know if I had dropped it or what. It looked like the referee's the one who threw it, but I thought she was the one who threw it at me.
That's cool.
But she had a lot of confidence in her boy.
Hey, Man, I can understand. And here you come, man. That's in case you guys aren't familiar, that is giving out the medals there. That's Orville Williams. He was he's considered the father of Kentucky wrestling. There you are, man, on top of the podium. Bracket, medal. And they give you guys these posters.
I used to love the posters. I like the posters more than I did the medals. Well, I meant the brackets. I don't even remember the poster, but the brackets, because those are the what I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's such a wrestling specific memento. You hardly ever see any other sports do that. So kind of a quick bout, very impressive. You dominated from whistle to whistle, but does it play out the way you remember it?
Yeah, it does. Again, the first period, I was just what I remember is I knew he was going to come hard off the whistle, and so I shot, and then I was just surprised I couldn't do anything on top because I was pretty dominant on top. Now he didn't escape, but that was where I was powerful, was on top.
Yeah, and especially, man, 112 pounds. I mean, they some studs that's come through the state at 100. I mean, for real, I'm not just saying that, but they've been some little kegs of dynamite, 112 pounds come through the state of Kentucky. But
You named one of them, Caldwell County.
Dave Ritchie's son, he was an animal.
Yeah, he was. And that's who I lost my daggone first match to. My sophomore year was a kid from Caldwell County. It wasn't Ritchie, but it was a kid from there. That's what I did.
Okay. Yeah.
And the guy from, I think it was Danville, put me out.
Oh,
it hurts my heart to this day.
Still, no, I get it, man. Those, you'd be surprised number of guys that have said something to that effect. But you joined the Waggener lineage of state champions. Now Waggener has 11. Let's go over them real quick. 1971 was the first state champion, a gentleman named Don Hall. 1971 and 1972, Arthur, I believe it's Noonan. 1972, Steve Goldberg. 1976, Greg Holznick. 1978 and 79, Tony Gorin. 1981 and 82, Chris Beeks. You in 87, and then Joel Carruthers in 89. 1971 team state runner-ups, and then 1982 team state runner-ups. So a pretty good lineage there of Waggener. 70s and 80s, man, the heyday. I don't know if they've had too much, I don't know their story now, but and I'm not trying to say anything bad about the program, but I'm not sure if they just don't have the kids out anymore, the interest is gone or whatever. But you just don't really see too many Waggener wrestlers nowadays. But man, back in the 70s and 80s, you guys had a heck of a program going on.
We did, and it's unfortunate they're trying to rebuild the program. I think the last it would have been a couple years ago. I guess they had 6 or 7 kids that were wrestling, and but yeah. So Joe Carruthers, again, he was one of those. So a guy named Steve Brown and myself, we pride ourselves on recruiting most of that '89 team, and they fell apart, but they were setting records in the state of Kentucky, Woodford County, you name them, and they had a good chance to win the tournament, and man, they fell apart. But Joe Carruthers has a younger brother, or a twin brother, named Jason, who just got promoted to brigadier general, and so he's the comptroller for the Air Force. Yeah, he was one of the starters on Waggener for several years, and he ended up. So a guy named our heavyweight. Tony Curlis, and a guy. So Tim's twin brother Tom and I all went up to the Pentagon and watched him get his promotion to BG. So it was pretty cool.
Wow, man, I had no idea, man. I'm glad you said that. That's cool. That's incredible. Earlier we talked about it. 1987 had a tremendous cast of characters, state champions. Let's talk about them. Our good buddy Jeff Everman, that video's on the channel at 98 pounds from Simon Kenton. He gets the final started with a fall. Simon Kenton crowd going crazy. They win the team title. Chuck Reimer, 105 pounds. We've got his video. We've talked to Chuck a few times. It's just getting him lined up. Horseshoe at 112. Our buddy Tom Lee from Christian County at 119. Mark Ullman, which got to go to Mark's house. I believe Mark just got, is it J-Town Fire Chief?
Yep,
is that correct?
J-Town. Yeah. And so Mark actually, so my house in Kentucky, literally Mark is about 3 minutes away from me. And, fast forward, our kids were rivals when they were wrestling in high school. And so, of course, Mark's boy wrestled for St. X and mine wrestled for Trinity. So that was an interesting series in itself.
Yeah. And actually, when I was at Mark's house, he mentioned you. I was not really early in the series, but we hadn't really kind of established ourselves like we have now. And he mentioned you. He's like, yeah, I can get you hooked up. And I just remember it was somebody from Waggener, and I was like, I don't have anybody from Waggener on the channel. That'd be cool to get a new school on the channel. But yeah, it was cool to get up with Mark. Pat Moody from Fort Campbell at 132. Tim Vaughn at 138 from Covington Scott. 145 pounds was Ernie Herring from Hoptown. Rest in peace to Ernie. He passed away on us. 155 pound Jim Clay from Danville. Marcus Turnley from Christian County at 167. Dominic Black at 185 from Henry Clay. And then Lawrence Woodford from Fern Creek at heavyweight. We've done Jeff Everman, you, Tom Lee, Mark Ullman, Ernie's Memorial, Marcus Turnley, Dominic Black, and Lawrence Woodford's review video. So we've got 1987 pretty well covered. And if I mentioned your name and you want to do your review video, reach out to me. We'd love to complete. We've got a few complete years on the channel, and just want to let the world know, man, there's been some great wrestling in Kentucky, some great stories. They've just been hid for far too long. And that's one thing I love about this series is finally being able to let the world see, man, we've got more in Kentucky than fried chicken, bourbon, horse racing, and basketball. We've got some good wrestling too.
And it's getting better.
Yeah, it's getting better too. Now, before we wrap this one up, we give everybody the opportunity to say, add, take away, anything of that nature. But with your military background, your coaching, the state of Kentucky is seeing a growth just out the roof of teams popping up, girls wrestling, elementary teams, youth teams, middle school, new high school. So kind of talk to the newer wrestlers, the newer coaches, parents, guardians, whoever that may be, about getting into wrestling. What advice would you give them? Just kind of the talking points, that way they kind of know what to expect when they get into the sport.
I tell you what, wrestling's a special sport for special people. There's no timeouts, no rest, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. It's you and your foe, one-on-one, man-to-man, toe-to-toe. The greatest sport ever invented, in my opinion. It is a form of self-defense. The worst thing's going to happen to you if your son or daughter gets into wrestling is they're going to know how to defend themselves. And I tell you what you take away from that sport, I promise you, it saved my life. It laid the foundation of who I am today. And then the Army took me the rest of the way. But for folks that are getting into the sport, look, you can't do what we used to be able to do when I came into the sport of wrestling. If you're not wrestling and at a younger age, it's going to be very difficult to get on that podium come your high school season. The sport of wrestling in the state of Kentucky has grown. It's gotten 10 times better. We're making a name for ourselves on the big stage. I mean, look at the Rainey brothers. And another, just big monumental positive that I always try to tell new families is it's probably the most fair sport you'll run into. Everybody's the same weight. And so, it's safe. It's I'm a big fan, and here I am at 55 years old, just took another head coaching job. So here we go.
Yep. And that's what so many guys have said, that exact same thing is, they, your kids get into it, or stepkids, whoever it may be, grandkids, grandpa wrestled way back when. And they're like, like you said, I'm 62 years old, I'm this age, and it gets in your blood. It never leaves you. It's always there. It feels like, and that's actually, you may remember this gentleman, Matt Shotwell from Connor, two-time state champion. He's a cardiologist there in the northern Kentucky area, and he messaged me this morning. As a matter of fact, his son is also a cardiologist there in Louisville, named Corey Shotwell. And he's like, what wrestling academy would you recommend for my grandson? And I gave him a few names of some people that have some academies there in Louisville. And Matt, with his videos on the channel, one of his 2 state championships. And it's such what we've been able to pull out of this series, what we've been able to let the world see what's going on, the information, the stories, the matches, the some of the names that we've heard about for so long that we're finally able to put mat time to. We've saw their names on like banners and gyms or in a trophy case, but you never got to see them wrestle. Now, all these years later, we're finally getting to let the world see, hey man, we got a lot going on in this state on the mats. It's just been hid for too long. So great information there for the newer people coming into the sport. Now, is there anything that you'd like to say, add, take away about anything that we may have left out, or anything that's kind of come to you while we've been talking? Because so many times, we get done and like, oh man, I should have said this, or I should have said that, or I wish I would have done this. So anything you'd like to add or anything like that, man, the floor is yours.
Hey, no, I appreciate that. And I tell you, my hat's off to you. I just want to thank you for including me into this series, and more importantly, everything you're doing to highlight and bring back the memories of old guys like me, but to promote the sport of wrestling, which is really what it's all about. I'm an avid fan. I always have been. I've tried to stay with wrestling. I went and wrestled a little bit in college, came back, was a head wrestling coach for a high school. I was assistant coach, head wrestling coach. When I joined the military, I became a referee. And then when my son started wrestling, I coached the whole time, all the way from his first match till he was done. So it's good to be back into the sport again. And man, I just really appreciate everything that you're doing. It's a big deal, and keep up the great work.
Man, I greatly appreciate that. It means a lot coming. Anytime somebody says that, I take it, to heart, but coming from you, your background and everything you've been able to accomplish, I really appreciate that. And it's just, there's not too many things in this realm of life that people can say, why aren't we doing what Kentucky's doing? Why can't we be more like Kentucky? Because sadly, God bless Mississippi, we're 48th, 49th, just about every metric. But when it comes to this, Kentucky high school wrestling is leading the charge on YouTube. We're the most easily accessible. We have the most videos of any. I challenge anybody to find any sport, whether it's professional, college, that has the amount of videos that we have, any state, anything. Kentucky wrestling, we're on top, and we ain't going. As long as I sit on this side of the screen, we ain't going no place. Because
I love it.
I love what we're doing here. I love being able to tell the stories, and I love being able to represent Kentucky wrestling and its stories and its matches and its careers, like Colonel Hedges, that people can stand up and say, I didn't know that. You mean Dominic Black's not the highest officer that we have? It's I had to throw a shot at you, Dom, man. I love you. I know I love you. But man,
and he stole my damn trophy.
Yeah, that most outstanding trophy, man. I think you should take down and cuts, Dominic, man. I don't know.
No, I ain't doing takedowns, but I'll trade ranks. I'll trade ranks. Give me the trophy.
Yeah. Give him that MOW trophy, man. Give him that MOW trophy. What are we doing here? But Colonel, thank you for doing this. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for watching. We will see you guys and girls on the mats.